All right, today we're going to do the Pythagorean Theorem. It states that in a right triangle, that's very important, only in a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse equals the sum of the squares of the legs. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the length of the hypotenuse. All right, so number one, find the missing length. Now again, this has to be right triangle, so you need to make sure of that. So it doesn't really matter which A and B are. They're just the two legs. The only one that really matters is C, which is the hypotenuse. Okay, so I'm going to say it's A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So let's just say 18 is A, 24 is B, and we're looking for C squared. So 18 squared is 324. 24 squared is 576. If I add those together, I get 900. So I don't want c squared, I want c. So to find that, I have to take the square root of both sides. So I get c equals 30. And that's my answer. All right, in B, I've got, again, I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem because it's a right triangle. So 9 squared plus b squared equals c squared, which is 16. And I know that's 16 because it is right across from the right angle. Okay, which is my hypotenuse? C is always my hypotenuse. Across from the right angle. Okay, so I've got 81 plus b squared equals 256. If I subtract 81 from both sides, I get b squared equals 175. And in this problem, they wanted me to round to the nearest hundredth, so I'd take the square root of both sides, and the square root of 175 is 13.23. That's my answer. Number 2 says, determine whether 7, 12, and 15 can be the sides of a right angle. All right, so a right triangle. So I'm going to try. All right, so if these can be the sides of a right triangle, they will fit into the Pythagorean theorem. Your largest side, or the 15, is going to have to be the hypotenuse if this is going to work. So 7 squared plus 12 squared equals 15 squared. This is what we're trying to see. If both sides equal each other, then yes, it's a right triangle. If they don't, then no. So 49 plus 144 equals 225. When I add those together, I get 193, which is not equal to 225. So the answer is no. This is another problem where I'm finding the length of the missing side. So I'm going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And I keep saying that, hoping that you will remember it. You need to. 3 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. So 9 plus 49 equals c squared. So we get 58 equals c squared. And it says to the nearest hundredth, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And on my calculator, I got 7.62. So that's my answer. Determine whether the measures form a right triangle. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. Again, this is just like the other one that we did. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm going to plug these numbers in. The 25 has to be the c. And if both sides of the equation equal each other, they will form a right triangle. So 15 squared is 225. 20 squared is 400, and 25 squared is 625. So if I add those two together, I get 625 equals 625. So yes, because they are equal, it is a right triangle.